Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Hidden Gene Woma ball python. And the first thing you're probably wondering is, what in the world is the deal with the name Hidden Gene in the name of the morph? And it has a pretty interesting history behind it. As a matter of fact, there's another gene out there that is called the Woma ball python. And it looks almost exactly like the Hidden Gene Woma. As a matter of fact, if you lined up a whole bunch of Womas and you slipped in a Hidden Gene Woma, you'd be hard pressed to actually tell the difference until you started breeding them. And when you breed them, you get a hidden gene mixed in that actually mixes different with other combos. That's why they call it the Hidden Gene Woma. Looks like the Woma, but it doesn't act the same when you're mixing it with other combos. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to jump over to the internet and I want to show you the Hidden Gene Woma. Alright, so I'm over here at the World of Ball Pythons. I'm going to go back and forth between here and Morph Market. And this is what a Hidden Gene Woma looks like. I would say it looks really pretty much like a spider, maybe a cross between a spider and an enchi. And this is, believe it or not, this is in what we call the spider complex. And there's a handful of genes in the spider complex that have the potential for a head wobble. And whatever you do, you don't want to cross two snakes together that have two genes that are in the spider complex, because if you get two of those genes in the same snake, you have the potential for a severe head wobble, or you have the potential of a lethal combo where the snake will die during the development of the egg. And those genes are the Woma, the Hidden Gene Woma, the spider, the champagne, the sable, and the spot nose. Pretty much those 6 genes are in the spider complex. So I really wanted to show you the difference between the Hidden Gene Woma and just the straight Woma, not the Hidden Gene Woma. There's quite a few differences. If you take a look at this snake, the Hidden Gene Woma, and compare it to the Woma, I would say they both look pretty close to each other, and they both look pretty much like the spider, pretty close. But when it comes to genetics, there's definitely a difference between the two. And first, I want to show you the difference when combined with lesser. That's probably the biggest difference. Here is Woma with lesser, and if you take a look at this, this actually looks like a lesser combined with a pattern reduction gene, which is the Woma. It reduces the pattern, still looks like a lesser. The interesting thing is, if you mix the Hidden Gene Woma with a lesser, it's an allelic combination where it has a completely different visual appearance. This is the Hidden Gene Woma mixed with the lesser, and there's a little bit of confusion here. I would say in this gene there is a lot of confusion, a lot of misinformation. As a matter of fact, this is called the soul sucker, and this is technically not a soul sucker by the definition of a soul sucker. This is the Hidden Gene Woma and lesser, and the soul sucker contains the GRANITE gene. And this is the funny thing is if you mix these two genes together, you compare it side by soul sucker, I would say this almost looks 100% like a soul sucker. If you drop the GRANITE, you really can't tell much of a difference. Some people say the line on the top of the snake is broke up a little bit more with the GRANITE in the mix. But I want to show you what a soul sucker looks like. This is a soul sucker, and if I'm looking at these two pictures and I really can't tell the difference dropping the GRANITE from the soul sucker. But when people are talking about a soul sucker, they're actually talking about 3 genes. That is the Hidden Gene Woma, the lesser, and the GRANITE. And that is what this snake, this is the real soul sucker, the 3 gene combo. And I just wanted to show you real quick what the GRANITE looks like. The GRANITE is pretty much a subtle morph. I really haven't talked about it before. And if you look at the sides of the ball python, it almost looks a little pixelated. I'm thinking I might have some GRANITE in my collection because I have quite a few normals that have some pixelation like this. It almost looks like some of the combos kind of have this pixelation in the sides. And if you mix the GRANITE with the lesser, I would say you really can't tell much at all that the GRANITE is in there. It's a pretty subtle morph. So I'd say if you drop the GRANITE from the soul sucker, it's a pretty safe bet that the snake's not going to look a whole lot different. The other thing is talking about misinformation. I came over here to the Genetic Wizard, the World of Ball Pythons, and I was kind of looking at some of the genetic calculations between the Woma and the Hidden Gene Woma. And I know for pretty much for a fact, pretty much 99% sure on my information that what I'm showing you here is correct. If you take a Woma and a lesser, has 2 genes in one snake, you breed it with a normal. This is, as far as I know, this is correct. You get 4 different snakes. You get a lesser Woma, a lesser, a Woma, and a normal, indicating that it is not an allelic combination. And if it was an allelic, it would act like a super, which means that the results would be 50% Woma and 50% lesser. You get no normals and no lesser normals. You couldn't reproduce the parent in an allelic combo. So I'm pretty sure this is right over here when you type in Woma and lesser over here in the world of ball pythons. But the interesting thing is I typed in Hidden Gene Woma and lesser. Doesn't show a picture over here, which is another interesting thing. I would think they would have a picture for this. You cross it with a normal, and the results are similar to the Woma. And I'm 99% sure that this is an allelic combo. And what you would really get is 50% lessers, 50% Hidden Gene Womas. You wouldn't get any normals. You wouldn't get any Hidden Gene Woma lessers. And there's a second calculator you can go to check your results. I went over here and checked my results over on Morph Market. There's a second calculator, and to my astonishment, I typed in Hidden Gene Woma lesser and got the same results. I believe these results are also incorrect. I'm pretty sure, 99% sure, this is an allelic combo. Everything you look on the internet is saying it's allelic, and for years, I've always heard that this is allelic. Pretty much get 50% lesser, 50% Hidden Gene Woma. So here's another interesting thing about the Hidden Gene Woma. You can come over here to Morph Market, do a search for the Super Hidden Gene Woma, and no one has posted anything over here ever. So it seems like this is a lethal combo if you're going for the Super Hidden Gene Woma. So here I just wanted to go through some of these combinations with kind of the standard genes mixed with the Hidden Gene Woma. And I would say it mixes pretty well with a lot of different combos. Here is the yellow belly, a really subtle morph. If you mix 2 yellow bellies together, you get an all-white snake with black eyes. One of the first all-white snakes. I believe this first super yellow belly sold for like $125,000. It was pretty incredible that someone produced an all-white snake. This was the first one. But now we can actually produce a lot of different all-white snakes from a bunch of different combos. But I'm pretty much sure that the yellow belly was first on the scene. The yellow belly works really well with a lot of genes. It's a really subtle morph by itself, but it mixes really well with genes, including the Hidden Gene Woma. Take a look at this. It really enhances the Hidden Gene Woma, brings out a lot of the color and the brightness. And the thing I really find interesting with the Hidden Gene Woma is you almost get this tiger pattern on the sides when you mix it with a lot of combos, which you really don't see in a lot of other genes. It's pretty much the first gene I've ever seen that has some really thin, kind of really bunched up tiger stripes through the sides of the snake. It looks really impressive with certain combos. Here's the Orange Dream. I'd say the Orange Dream works pretty well with the Hidden Gene Woma. The Orange Dream, the problem is there's a high intensity line and a low intensity line, and it's really difficult to figure out which line you have when you're looking at different combos if you don't know, the original breeding stock of what you're looking at, which in this case I really don't know. So this is the Hidden Gene Woma Orange Dream. Another thing that's interesting about the Hidden Gene Woma that I've heard a lot of on the internet, people are saying when the snake matures, it tends to fade out a little bit more than most combos. So if you're looking at some of the younger snakes, I'd say they're a little bit brighter than some of the older snakes. Here's the spider, and remember the spider and the Hidden Gene Woma are both in the spider complex. You definitely don't want to breed them together. I would think this is a lethal combo, but sure enough, over here you actually see a Hidden Gene Woma spider. And if you look at who produced it, it was actually produced by Nerd, which is interesting. He actually is I'd say he's one of the founders of a lot of these genes that we're working with. He produces some pretty incredible stuff, and he always goes honestly, he produces some stuff nobody else can produce. It's not surprising he actually produced the Hidden Gene Woma spider. I personally, I wouldn't breed those two snakes together, and I'm not sure if this has problems with head wobble. I would say it's very likely that this has a potential for a severe head wobble, so I definitely wouldn't shoot for this combo. Here's the pastel. The pastel mixes really good with the Hidden Gene Woma, and the pastel is interesting because there are several lines of pastel. Some are brighter than others, some are really dull. So if you're looking at the combo, you really don't know the brightness or intensity. And if you look at this, this looks really close to a bumblebee. I actually pulled up a picture of a bumblebee over here. This is the pastel spider. Looks really close to the Hidden Gene Woma pastel. It looks, I'd say this is probably as close as you're going to get to a bumblebee with any combo without using the spider gene. Here's the cinnamon. The cinnamon works really well with a lot of combos. The super cinnamon is almost a completely black snake. The cinnamon almost is, it's a really dark morph, and it really changes the pattern with a lot of different combos, which is kind of surprising for something that looks so normal. It's just a kind of a dark standalone gene. You mix it with the Hidden Gene Woma, and you see on this one, it's kind of surprising that this one doesn't have more of a pattern change on the sides of the snake. A lot of times when you mix cinnamon in with things, you see a lot of kind of streaking along the sides. This pretty much just takes the snake and it makes it quite a bit darker. The albino is interesting. The albino is pretty much a yellow and white snake. It's a recessive morph, always has red eyes, and almost keeps the same pattern as a normal ball python. Sometimes you can see the alien heads up through the albino, and I would say the Hidden Gene Woma is really, the more I look at a lot of these pictures, I'd say it's more of a pattern change mutation, changes the pattern, kind of scrambles it up a lot more than a lot of other morphs. And you can definitely see this is a little bit darker than a regular albino, but you can definitely tell the influence of the Hidden Gene Woma breaking up the pattern. Alright, so I'm going to show you the potential of the Hidden Gene Woma when mixed with some of these multi-gene combos. I kind of wanted to start with the pastel clown. That's pretty much the typical pattern that you see with the pastel clown. I would say this is your standard clown pattern. This is what happens when you mix in the Hidden Gene Woma. It really affects the pattern, really reduces it and breaks it up quite a bit. You can see this banding a little bit down the sides, and I would say probably the closest thing that comes to the Hidden Gene Woma and some of these combos I would think is Enchi, where it brings out a little bit of the yellow and it really reduces the pattern, although it's completely different than Enchi when you work it into a lot of these genes. Here is the Freeway. The Freeway is an asphalt yellow belly, not to be confused with the Highway, which is the gravel yellow belly. The Freeway has this dotted line right down the middle of the snake, pretty much why they call it the Freeway. You mix in the Hidden Gene Woma with the Freeway, and you pretty much lose the dotted line, the whole Freeway effect. You get this really crazy looking snake. That is pretty incredible mixed together. And keep in mind, a lot of the Freeways and the Highways, they pretty much fade when they get older, and especially if you have Hidden Gene Woma in the mix, you know this snake is going to fade quite a bit as it matures. So this is interesting. This is the Hidden Gene Woma with the bamboo. You know, the snake around my neck at the beginning and the end of all my videos. That is Bobby. He is a bamboo ball python. You mix in Hidden Gene Woma, and I would say it definitely changes the pattern of, personally I like the straight bamboos a little bit more. I guess it depends what kind of an effect you're going for. And keep in mind, a lot of times the bamboo is extremely polymorphic. Some are really reduced patterns and some are really busy patterns. You mix this with the Hidden Gene Woma, and this almost looks kind of like a calico bamboo, which is kind of interesting. It almost kind of fades it out and jumbles up the pattern. You almost still keep the stripes down the sides, which is pretty cool. So I came over to here to Morph Market. I just was curious how many Hidden Gene Womas were on here. How popular is this morph? I sorted by all the ones that are for sale and all the ones that have sold, and there are 1,247 Hidden Gene Woma ball pythons over here on Morph Market. Quite a few people are into these projects. And talk about confusing. This is actually extremely confusing. Another part of the gene that kind of drives me crazy. So when I talk about Inferno, usually when I'm talking about Disco Inferno, we talk about Inferno taking the place of what we normally refer to as the fire gene. So when I'm saying Disco Inferno, I'm saying Disco Fire in a lot of cases, and we're talking about Inferno as kind of the slang for fire. But believe it or not, there is a standalone morph called the Inferno that consists of 4 genes, including the Hidden Gene Woma, and it's a really impressive snake. I actually went over here to the morph market and I searched for Inferno, and it broke apart all the genes. This is what an Inferno is. It is a yellow belly, Hidden Gene Woma, pastel, and granite, which is 4 genes. Pretty hard to hit the Inferno with the Hidden Gene Woma. And I found this picture. This is really the ultimate potential of the Hidden Gene Woma. This is a snake like I've never seen any snake before. This is the Inferno ball python. And I was wondering, if I actually bought this ball python and bred it to another snake, how tough would it be to produce another Inferno? What are the odds with 4 genes? It's pretty hard to hit. I came over here into the genetic wizard. This is pretty much my gold standard for all my calculations. I believe it 99% of the time. In most cases, it is right. I plugged in the 4 genes, bred it to a normal, and sure enough, here are the odds. It is a 1 in 16 chance to actually hit the Inferno. It's a really cool snake, but I would say on the negative side, it is really hard to reproduce. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And John Como asks, do snakes need sunlight or supplementation with vitamin D? And that is a very good question. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of reptiles that do need sunlight. They need lights with a specific wavelength, or they need supplementation. And snakes, fortunately, we don't need to supplement their diet with anything. You could feed them rodents, pretty much any kind of rodent. You can feed them a mouse, a rat, or an African soft fur. It is a 100% complete diet. You don't need any other supplementation. So that is pretty much it. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.